Hello world, I'm back. My name is Code Eric, and I'm working on this app called Zerve. And Zerve is an open source service, fully open source, that allows you to manage your application's content and settings directly. You can directly access your settings from the Zerve application. And my theme this week is working on authentication for real users, real life workflow. And I've also been a little bit distracted this week because I don't know if you've heard in the news, but there's this billionaire that's trying to buy Twitter, and it's got everyone thinking about the role that Twitter has in our lives and online identity. And I think that ties really well with my empathy for user workflows this week, because I'm trying to allow people to sign in on the website, and I'm asking, what does that actually mean in practice? And to tie it to the real world, I mean, we're all people, meaty people who speak, and we're trying to communicate online, and it's worth thinking about how we identify each other online and how we identify and represent ourselves. So, when you're logging into like a web service, or at least what we support right now in the Zerve application with regard to external identity is the phone number or your email address. So you can log in with either of those, and we send you a code to identify you. Really simple external identity workflow. But there are other forms of external identity as well. For example, when you click sign in with Google or sign in with Twitter, it uses Auth, and it's actually backed by that domain. And if you think about Auth, it allows any domain to provide identity. And that's also similar to the elephant in the room, which is email, which allows any domain to provide identity. And that's actually the core of the identity, I would say, for both email and OAuth. They're built upon DNS. Because when you think about the handle, you've got to think about, what is the username, who's before the @ sign, and also who's after the @ sign to figure out what domain you're on. So really, every Twitter handle is your handle at twitter.com. Of course, it's not useful as an email address because, Twitter doesn't want to mess around with open protocols like that. Another super exciting open source mechanism for identity is to identify just using a public key. Now, it's not very useful in practice because a public key is just a really long string that is impossible to remember. So instead of having to remember the public key, what you can do is you can publish a signature to a URL. And that signature proves that you hold the private key that corresponds to the public key. So now you can distribute your identity as a combination of the URL and the public key. And it's easy to remember because there's the URL, and it's secure because there's the public key that's cryptographically making sure that you're the same person that you were before. So once you have an internal identity system, what if you want to publish it? Well, there's lots of different ways you can do that. Of course, you can provide an email service where you provide, of course, your handle at the domain name. You can provide OAuth, which allows other sites to securely log in and request resources. There's ActivityPub, which Mastodon is built upon, which is a federated Twitter. Super exciting stuff. But of course, you can also just publish as a web URL, which is what Twitter itself does. It takes your URL and it puts it as a path. And other services sometimes give you a subdomain that matches your username. Anyways, this has been a short rant on why I think Zerve needs an internal identity system, aka usernames, and why we should be building really strong bridges to external forms of identity. Because it's really important for us to tie our identity, our personal identity, across different services. So Zerve does have some authentication strategy providers. Right now, just phone number and email. But hopefully we're going to get past that and get into some really interesting and secure forms of identity. Anyways, expect some technical content on usernames and being able to log into the website. See you soon.